You're enjoying the contrasting experience that helps you focus your own personal desires. Some making an effort at being honest there. Really, do you enjoy contrast? Have you come to the place yet of knowing that you are leading edge creators? Do you know that? You are extensions of source energy, and you've come to have new ideas, to have new experiences. You've come to ask for new things. You are leading edge. That's what that means. You are the leading edge extension of the eternal energy that is source. So you said, I like the idea of variety. You were saying this before you came into this body. You even say that now. I like variety. Variety is a nice way of saying it. I like variety. I like many things to choose from. We like to say the contrast, which is variety, is what causes you to focus. And the focusing that we are talking about is more subtle and comes more easily to you than many of you understand by the word focus. And by that we mean even the one-celled organism is having an experience, and its personal preferences are being born out of its experience. For example, when you live something that you do not particularly enjoy, in the moment of your having that exposure to that experience, your preferences are happening within you. You know how when you go that way, you don't go that way? And when you go that way, you don't go that way? In other words, just being in an environment where you are having experience is causing you to come to your personal, specific, selfish, and that's a good thing, perspective of what you prefer. Now, you could call it a full-blown desire, or you could call it a preference, but living life causes that to happen within you. And when the preference happens within you, it emanates from you vibrationally. We like to say like a rocket of desire or like a rocket of preference. And in the moment that that happens, Source, who you are an extension of, goes thought-wise with that new preference. So in the moment you have the exposure to the experience that causes the preference or desire to be born, Source says, yes, agreed. And the full resources of the universe are put into motion in order to organize circumstances and events in order to accommodate your desire. But in terms of vibration, your inner being, your source, that which you call God, it does not matter what you call this non-physical energy, becomes immediately and fully at one with your desire. The only question is, what are you doing vibrationally relative to this desire? Are you vibrationally up to speed with this desire? And this is the thing that we don't think you realize either. Your contrast causes desires to be born, and almost all of you, meaning the non-physical part of you, goes and becomes that which you have decided, because in the non-physical vibrational world, when you think the thought, it is done. Now, in this physical world where you are waiting for the physical manifestation, 99% of every creation is complete vibrationally before you begin to see the physical evidence of it. So what we're wanting you to realize is, in the moment that you want it, in the moment that you identify that you want it, in the moment that you sort of even a little bit want it, in the moment that you prefer it, in the moment that you ask a question, in the moment, Source says yes, and it is done. We're not kidding you about that. If your environment has the capacity to inspire within you the new preference, your environment has within it the capacity to fulfill it completely. But there will be a buffer of time. There will be some time that passes between the time you gave birth to it and the time it fully manifests into your experience. And that time is conditional only upon how long it takes you to close that vibrational gap. That's why when you want things that you already believe, there is no variable. You are already a vibrational match to it, and now it can and does manifest immediately. But when you want something that you don't believe, when you want something that you're worried about, when you want something and you're beating the drum as you watch CNN, how you're living the opposite of what you are wanting to live, now you hold yourself in vibrational variance to your own desire. And even though you have asked, and even though Source has answered and it has been given, It's not showing up in your experience yet because there is a vibrational variance. You've got to close that gap. So that's what this gathering is about. We call it the art of allowing. And it is literally the art of allowing who you are and what you want to flow into your experience. It's the art of allowing yourself vibrational alignment with who you are, with who you have become. Do you know that as you're living an experience and the experience causes this new rocket of desire to be born, most of you has immediately already become that. And the emotions that you feel as you think about it are about whether you have really let yourself become it or not. In other words, you can't pull back. Do you know that when you live a new leading edge experience, and every moment is full of that, when you live this new experience and you give birth to these new leading edge desires, you can't not become one with them and ever feel complete or fulfilled or satisfied. When you give birth to a new desire, you just gotta go with it. You've got to go with it. You can't have an experience that causes a new desire to be born and then hold yourself apart from that new desire without your emotional guidance system giving you constant feedback that you're not in alignment with who you have become. When you have an experience, Source says, you should know you're the worthy one on the leading edge. No one better to come to this conclusion but you. It is done. And now, friends, it's up to you to get up to speed with what you're asking for. Sometimes we hear you nitpicking over whether it is a worthwhile objective, this desire that has been born within you. You want to quibble about whether it is spiritual enough. Isn't it too material? And we say, the spirit that is you has materialized, friends. The leading edge of spirituality is material. In other words, you live in this time-space reality where you have these translators that translate vibration. You see with your eyes because you have interpreters. You hear with your ears because they are interpreting vibration. Even what you smell and feel with your fingertips and taste with your tongue are vibrational interpretation. So you are vibrationally interpreting this time-space reality, and that is as material as it gets. You cannot pull back from the leading edge. And that which you call God is right here in you and in everything you see in this very materialistic and also absolutely spiritual environment. In other words, they are not separate, they are same. So then you say, but how do I know if I am worthy to choose? And we say, you're here. You're here in an environment that is causing you to focus. And that focusing of thought, which means I'm remembering, I'm pondering, I'm imagining, I'm observing, I'm commenting, I'm contemplating. In other words, anything that makes your mind focus is a focusing of energy, is an offering of vibration, is a creative endeavor. So, we so much want you to hear from us and feel from us before we are finished with this day that you are source energy. It does not get more worthy than that which you are. And here you are having an experience which is causing you to launch rockets of desires. And those desires are so adored by Source, and Source becomes one with them so fully, you cannot get it wrong and you cannot get it done. And the reason you cannot get it wrong is because it is never done. So when you stand in a contrasting place where something is manifested that you're not that pleased with, no problem. Where are you in relationship to where you now want to be? The new information has now occurred to you because of the fabulous experience that you've just had. Words never teach. Words don't teach at all. Strange we offer so many. It is life experience. It is your life experience that gives you your knowing, you see. There is nothing that you cannot achieve because your environment has caused you to want it, and Source always says yes. But you've got to find a way of becoming a vibrational match to that. And you can't keep looking at the absence of what you want and be a vibrational match to what you want. You've got to find a way to change your personal perspective. We think that it might be helpful if you would acknowledge that 99% of it is complete before you see any evidence. So while no evidence is turned up, wouldn't it be just as easy to think that you're on the way to it than to think you're not on the way to it? Except that You've been looking at your past manifestations, and you've convinced yourself, because you haven't been quantifying your journeys, you've convinced yourself that you are unworthy, or that it is impossible, or that it is incurable. And we say, none of that is true. You can be or do or have anything that your life experience has caused you to want, because Source has said yes. And now you must find a way of saying yes too. Let's say, for your benefit, that you want this relationship or a relationship. You don't want to be alone. And that's the rocket of desire that is launched from you. So now, that rocket of desire is launched, and Source says, yes, of course. We're arranging things even as you are asking. In fact, we've been arranging them even before the decision of the departure of the other took place, because it has been evident through all of the exposure to all of the experience that you've been having. You have filled your vibrational escrow. We like to call it that, That's what it is. The contrast causes you to launch these rockets of desire, and they're held for you in vibrational escrow, just waiting for you to become a vibrational match to them. So every time you had an argument, every time you had a fight, every time you were disrespected, every time you disrespected the other, every time you wished something could be different, every time you noticed how bad something was, all of the exposure to all of those experiences caused you, without even knowing you were doing it, to create the perfect relationship for you. And it's over here waiting for you in vibrational escrow. So much better than the contrasting one which helped you give birth to it. In fact, the more relationships you've had, the more beautiful your vibrational escrow relationship is. Source says, it's done. We know who it is. We know where this person is. We know how to get the two of you together. It's a done deal. Don't worry about it. We've got it covered. And you're over here freaking out. You're over here complaining about what went wrong. You're over here justifying how bad you feel. You're over here talking about all of the things that have happened that make you feel like this victim. Where percolating over here is this magnificent partner waiting for you that you have set into motion through every day of your life. And you're over here, you announce to the world, there's no one out there for me. And we say, over here, over here, over. And how do you know what over here is? Over here feels like joy. Over here feels like love. Over here feels like appreciation. Over here feels like good things. Over there feels like bad things. In other words, we know it's sort of hard to understand that good feels good, but it really, really does. Good feels good. In other words, all things that you are wanting, as you are moving toward them, you feel a releasing of resistance. In other words, a feeling of relief means motion in the direction of what you're really going to like when you get there. Negative emotion means motion in the direction that you're really not going to like when you get there. Really, we're not kidding you about, because it's all about this vibrational gap that you're closing, you see. We think you heard that clearly. We've written a book. We've offered endless processes. We feel sorry for any of you who's trying to do all of them. We are endless spewers of processes. And every process is for one intent. It is to help you close that vibrational gap between those 2 points of vibrational relativity, between where you are and where you want to be. Every one of them is about moving you up the emotional scale. The emotional scale, on one end of it are emotions that feel wonderful, like joy and love and appreciation, passion. On the other end are emotions that feel awful, like fear and despair. And on the end of the emotional scale that feels wonderful is your perception of freedom and empowerment. And on the end of the scale that feels rotten is your perception of lack of freedom and lack of empowerment. And every emotion along this emotional scale are about the varying degrees of your alignment with who you really are. We want you to notice the correlation. Here is your inner being, your source, your God, whatever you want to call that source energy. Here is that source energy, 1 point of vibrational relativity, and here you are somewhere in vibrational relationship to it. And the closer you are to it, the better you feel. And notice this emotional scale, where on one end of it is pure positive energy, and on the other end of it, it feels awful. And so, can you feel how as you move up the emotional scale, you are closing the vibrational gap between where you are standing and where you want to be? We want you to begin thinking in every moment about how you are feeling, because as you are commenting on something or remembering something or imagining something, you are forking off in the direction of something wanted or not wanted. It does not matter how much you forked in the direction of what you don't want. You're all still powerful in your now, and you can begin your new direction at any time.